This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Hello family, and welcome to another wonderful edutainment edition of the Artivist Thinks. Today we'll be talking about Al Sharpton. People say, wow, Al Sharpton. Some people call him the Perm, Al Charlatan, and stuff like that. I'm not going to knock Al Sharpton like that today. I just want to put him in a perspective, like, Al Sharpton, whatever you might say for him, or think of him or not think of him, he is actually very, very brilliant at what he does. He basically reinvented himself in so many ways. From Tawana Brawley days, he downsized himself. Literally, he lost a lot of weight, but also he grew his game. I just think that it's amazing that a guy who went from protesting in the streets about Tawana Brawley and all this stuff, wearing jumpsuits or sweatsuits or jogging suits, he go from that to wearing three-piece suits, having a mainstream presence, and having a direct line to the White House, the President Obama White House. So I think that's very incredible. You can't knock the hustle on that part. But I know a lot of people are critical of him in terms of, is he really good for our movement? Has he been an asset or a liability? And I know people recently talked about the revelations of him being the FBI informant. But then people should also understand too, that's interesting in itself. What about Thurgood Marshall? We now know through documents and whatnot that Thurgood Marshall, the Supreme Court Justice, the first black Supreme Court Justice, the co-architect behind the Brown v. Board decision, a brilliant lawyer, a very exceptional lawyer. We now know that he was indeed an FBI informant for J. Edgar Hoover. That he gave information to J. Edgar Hoover about certain civil rights leaders and organizations like the Nation of Islam. So we know this for a fact now. And yet, that is really not get a lot of thought from the quote unquote mainstream. But yet, people talk about Al Sharpton being an FBI informant. So I like to ask people, pose the question as well, was Thurgood Marshall an asset or liability? For example, I think about, you think about somebody like Malcolm X. He was also approached by the FBI. He recorded them talking to him in his house. They wanted him to provide information on the Nation of Islam, and to Malcolm's credit, he refused to do so. He basically told them they should be more interested in finding out who killed them 4 little girls in that black church down in Birmingham. And then he told the FBI, this is online, you can go on YouTube and find this easily. And but truth be told, with the recent revelations of Ernest, the famous civil rights photographer, we all know he was an FBI informant as well. What does that really mean? Is it the same as being an agent provocateur? You think that these people that we revere and celebrate, and in some cases low, do you think that their legacy is tarnished by the fact that they were FBI informants? Or do you think everything's about context? To me, for example, with Ernest Withers, I look at the fact that he was one of the first black cops in Memphis history, in Memphis, Tennessee history. And also he was a freelance photographer. And you gotta think about this. For example, I always give people this scenario with Ernest Withers, because people are so quick to call him an FBI informant, which he was, but also to call him a snitch, a rat, a traitor, a Judas. I don't know. I don't think he was a traitor or Judas to that degree, and I'll tell you why. Because he was a freelance photographer. For example, let's say he went to a civil rights meeting, right, and took pictures and photos. And so his handler at the FBI, he actually paid Withers for the photos. And then he might ask Withers, say, who is this at the meeting? What are they talking about? So if the meeting was a public meeting, and he's a photographer taking pictures, and the FBI, just want to know, what they was talking about at this meeting or rally, and who are these people in the picture. Is that really being the FBI informant? I mean, I know because the FBI is paying for his photography, and he's a freelance photographer. He's a businessman. We're in a capitalistic society or a system of capitalism. But was he a mastermind in the elimination of King? Just because he's an FBI informant does not make him a mastermind in the elimination of Dr. King. But if you fast forward to a year after Dr. King's assassination to Chairman Fred Hampton, Sr. of the Black Panther Party, chapter of Illinois, now his chief bodyguard was William O'Neill. And William O'Neill, not only was he an FBI informant, but I would say he was an agent provocateur because his actions changed the course of history. He was Fred Hampton Sr.'s chief bodyguard, and he helped prepare Fred Hampton's last meal. So he put some stuff in Fred Hampton's Kool-Aid or whatever in his meal to make Chairman Fred very drowsy. So when the police raided his apartment, Fred Hampton wasn't really up to respond in a positive or in a way that would defend himself, that would protect himself from being assassinated. He was too drowsy. As a matter of fact, he was sleeping next to his fiancée, who was pregnant with Chairman Fred Jr. in her womb. And Chairman Fred Jr. would be born several weeks after his father was assassinated. So you think about the trauma that Fred Jr. had to experience in the womb of his mom, and his dad's being assassinated by the state. Think about that. And Fred Hampton was just 21 years old, but he was drowsy. So the police shot up the Panther apartment, killed Mark Clark, the deputy chairman of the Panther Party of Illinois. I believe he's the deputy chairman. Please forgive me if I got it wrong. But he killed Mark Clark. He let off a round from his rifle in response to getting hit in the chest, I believe. So they just shot up the apartment building. Just turned into Swiss cheese, beat up on some of the Panthers that were there. And they went to Fred Hampton's bedroom, and there was a black police officer shot in the head that eliminated Fred Hampton Sr. So it was a black cop that actually did the kill shot, which was taking the Fred Hampton's head that killed this guy at the age of 21. So his bodyguard was not only an FBI informant, William O'Neill, but also he was an agent provocateur, I would say. And so I think they say that he committed suicide by running across the highway or expressway in Chicago. This is back in, I believe, 1990. But if you look at the Eisner Prize documentary, they got a great episode on Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party in Chicago, and they interviewed William O'Neill. It's like he felt very guilty or remorse by what he did. I'm not sure. I'm not him. I wasn't him, but he allegedly committed suicide for his role in the killing of Fred Hampton, because my understanding from looking at the film, he really thought that Fred Hampton was a good guy, once he started to know him, but he helped kill him. So that's the difference I draw between somebody like William O'Neill and Ernest Withers. I don't believe Ernest Withers was actually involved in the killing of Dr. King. I believe he was more about reporting about what was going on. And I talked to some of the veterans who were involved, and some of them say they don't feel like, that Ernest Withers did any real harm. They thought he did more of a service to the movement by documenting the civil rights movement. Now his photographs from the movement are very iconic, especially of Dr. King. And he was also the one that shot the footage of the Emmett Till trial. Or I say the Emmett Till trial, but the people that killed him. They killed Emmett Till. He shot that footage as well. So getting back to Sharpton, Thurgood Marshall, so are they, I know a lot of people still like Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton, arguably behind President Obama, is the most powerful black man in America, if you think about it, truth be told. And he's the call or go-to guy when something happens with victims of police brutality and whatnot. I know they did an expose about Al Sharpton recently, about folks say he all about their money, but Al Sharpton, one thing I respect about Al Sharpton, that he understands his role. I'm not saying that, I respect everything, his ideology. He understands who he is and what he's about. He understands what he's about, And see, that's a problem with a lot of black people, particularly people in general. We don't really understand how a lot of things work in this system. Al Sharpton ain't gonna solve your problem. He might highlight your problem because his platform, he's a media guy. He might highlight your problem, get it more publicity, but he's not gonna help solve your problem. That's not his role. People call him a shakedown artist. He's he was produced. His mentors were Jesse Jackson, Sr. and James Brown, and they had a baby called Al Sharpton. So this is the trees that he come from. So this is who he is. And I know some of his comrades and collaborators over the past years, some of them are very bitter, some of them are very disillusioned. They don't care for Al Sharpton. The one thing I say about Al Sharpton, he's a survivor. You know, you can say what you want about him. He's very persistent, insistent, and resilient when it comes to this thing. And I think that's something we all can learn from Al Sharpton, to have the ability to adapt, to survive, and also thrive. So once again, I'm not, saying I'm just the biggest Al Sharpton fan, but I will tell you a story. It's not really, I worked for Al Sharpton before. I volunteered. I didn't get paid for it, but when they had the 40th anniversary of Dr. King's death, it was a big ado in Memphis. And my mom actually helped get volunteers for the program, for Al Sharpton's program. They came to town, the National Action Network and Al Sharpton. They didn't have no volunteer corps, a volunteer corps already established. They was able to utilize people like my mom and other folks to get these volunteers. And I was basically impressed with how they was able to utilize people in the community to get what they want. You think about how the hell they gonna pull this off, but it gets pulled off. And that's Al Sharpton. He's a guy that will surprise people time and time again with his ability to survive and also thrive. So I'll give him that. But I just want people to think about, when we call somebody an FBI informant, are they a traitor to our race, or are they a Judas? And you think about the different examples I just gave about Al Sharpton. He was exposed. Allegedly he was doing some spy work, spying on the mob. And I really doubt that Al Sharpton brought down Vincent the Chin Gigante, one of the most powerful mob bosses of all time. First of all, the mob won't let any black person get close to one of their bosses like that, okay? You still got a lot of racism, white supremacy going on with the Italians. And we all know that, a lot of Italians are very dark, for whatever reason. We all know the reason. So, but you still had that type of play going on, So, I just want to give y'all some food for thought. There's no right or wrong, I don't think. I just think people need to start thinking for themselves. And I call myself a thought provocateur because I want to get people to think about stuff. I'm not trying to get people to agree with what I say or what I think. I'm just trying to get y'all to think on your own and do the research. Either prove me right or prove me wrong, but just do for self. And with that said, I want to thank everybody. Before I get over, Al Sharpton is a great speaker too. He's a great orator. He know how to utilize what he has to get what he wants. Let's put it that way. And once again, I now work for the National Action Network. I only volunteer for one event. I didn't get paid for it. I'm not a paid agent for the National Action Network. I'm just saying that if we're going to talk about the bad and Al Sharpton and what he has done over the years, we also got to accentuate the good and also, his fair contribution to the struggle. Do you think he's a agent or an ally of the struggle or the movement? I just want people to think about that as well and share your thoughts with your people. Please feel free to subscribe if you want to, and share this with your friends and family, and keep on producing and pushing. In the words of the late great Duke Ellington, we love you all madly. Take care until next time.